elements in oceans and seas and their significance. Types of coasts. The type of coast existing in an area is determined by a variety of factors. These are both the processes operating on the coast and the features resulting from such processes. The factors influencing the shape of the coast include nature of the coastal rocks, slopes of the coast, orientation of the coastline, changes in the sea level, waves and tidal currents, and human activities. Let us discuss these factors in detail. Nature of the coastal rock. Different coasts have different types of rocks. Where the coastal rocks are resistant to wave erosion, a steep highland coast is formed. Such coasts are characterized by cliffs. On the other hand, if the coastal rocks offer little resistance to erosion, then wave erosion will be intense, resulting in formation of sea inlets such as the bays. This forms an irregular coast. Slope of the coast. Wave erosion is very active where the coastal land slopes steeply into the sea, while wave deposition is dominant where the coastal land slopes gently into the sea. Orientation of the coastline. This refers to the very alignment of the coastline to the path of prevailing winds. Where winds approach the coast diagonally, the waves are more destructive. In contrast, where the coast is at right angle to the breaking waves, longshore drift results. Here, the transportation and eventual deposition by waves is predominant. Changes in the sea level. A rise in the sea level results in the formation of submerged coasts, while a drop in the sea level is responsible for the developments of emerged coasts. Waves and tidal currents. Waves are the main agents of erosion transportation and deposition by the sea. Where erosion is predominant, the coast is characterized by features of wave erosion. On the other hand, where deposition is taking place, the coast will have accumulation of material transported from other shores. The occurrence of tides influences the area of the shore to be affected by the waves. Coasts which experience a large tidal range have more surface area over which waves can operate. Human activities. Human activities include agriculture, construction of canals and harbors, which interferes with the natural developments of the coasts. Categories of the coast. There are three main categories of the coast. These are submerged coasts, emerged coasts, and coral coasts. Submerged coasts. A coast is said to be submerged or drowned when part of the coastal land lies under sea water. Submergence results from changes in base level or relative rise in sea level in relation to the land. Submerged coasts are further grouped into two main categories. They are submerged upland coasts and submerged lowland coasts. Submerged highland or upland coasts. These coasts are formed when the margins of an irregular highland are drowned. An indented coastline results from submergence. It is characterized with islands and peninsulas that show the former uplands as island and the former river valleys as inlets. Most notable of the submerged upland coasts include Rias coasts, Fjords coast, and Dalmatian coasts. Rias coasts. A ria is a drowned river mouth. The submerged river mouth valley form winding inlets which are deeper offshore. The flooded valley forms a funnel-shaped water inlet which decreases in both depth and width inland. A ria coast is also considered as a discordant coast because the river valleys run at right angles to the coast. Fjords or fords. Fjords are submerged glacial troughs or glaciated valleys which have been drowned by the sea. Fjords are found on glaciated upland areas which lie adjacent to the sea. The ice that used to occupy such valleys eroded the valleys as Dalmatian coast. They are also called longitudinal coasts. Dalmatian coasts are submerged coasts that are made up of ridges and valleys which are more or less parallel to the coastline. The valleys are drowned to form a narrow sea inlet called sounds, while ridge-like hills often form the islands or along narrow peninsulas. Submerged lowland coasts. Submerged lowland coasts give rise to estuarine coasts having broad shallow indentations which narrow inland. Mud floats near such coasts are exposed at low tides. They emerged coasts. This is formed by the uplift of adjacent continental land or a relative fall of the sea level. This exposes the land which was formerly underwater as dry land. Emergence may occur on both highland and lowland coasts. Emerged highland or upland coasts. These coasts are characterized by features, especially those previously formed by wave action. Raised beaches. They are beaches which stand above the present shoreline, appearing like an eroded rock platform, for instance, Mamangina Drive in Mombasa. Raised wave-cut platforms. These are raised areas which stand above the present raised beaches. Raised wave-cut platforms. These are raised areas which stand above the present raised beaches. Emerged lowland coasts. These coasts are formed by the uplift of coastal lowlands or a drop in the sea level. This exposes part of continental shelf to form a broad, gently sloping plain called a coastal plain. Some of the resultant features formed, such as sounds, spits, bars, and coral reefs, are exposed. When river rejuvenation takes place, rivers cut deep valleys. Coral coasts. Coral is a limestone rock made up of exoskeletons of tiny marine organisms called coral polyps. Coral polyps live in the sea in colonies. They extract calcium from the water to make their own shells. They attach themselves to rocks and to one another. When the polyps die, their skeletons form the ridge-like rocks which lies parallel to the shore. It is through these that reefs are built. Condition necessary for the growth of corals. In order for the coral reefs to grow, there must be favorable conditions for them to thrive. These conditions are in water that are uniformly warm, 20 degrees to 25 degrees Celsius, in salty water, in clear, clean water free of sediments, in water that is well supplied with oxygen, and a depth of about 0 meters where the sunlight can easily penetrate to stimulate the growth of planktons. Coral reefs. A coral reef is an offshore ridge mainly of calcium carbonate formed by the accumulation of skeletons of coral polyps. There are 3 types of coral reefs. These are fringing reefs, barrier reefs, and atoll. Fringing reefs. The reefs are directly attached to the coasts. Fringing reef consists of a platform of coral built out from the coast. It is concave in appearance and its outer edge falls steeply to the sea floor. Coral polyps start by growing and extending seaward. The higher seaward edge encloses a shallow lagoon between it and the shore. Barrier reefs. They are similar to a fringing reef, only that it is a long distance from the shore and it is separated from the shore by a much deeper lagoon. Atoll. This is a reef that is circular or elliptical or horseshoe in shape. It encloses a fairly deep lagoon. Theories of formation of coral coasts. It is assumed that coral reef was formed under different circumstances. Theories have been advanced to explain the formation of coral reefs. These are Darwin's theory, Daly's theory, and Marie's theory. Daly's theory. Daly's theory, also known as glacial control theory. This theory is based on the changing level of the sea during and after Ice Age. Marie's theory. The theory was proposed by Sir John Murray in 1880. According to Murray, the formation of the barrier reef does not involve subsidence of the ocean floor. Barrier reefs starts as fringing reef which gradually grow outwards. Breaking waves disintegrate the fringing reef, the debris of which accumulate on its seaward side. The deposited material eventually form a base for growth of other polyps. The polyps begin to grow upwards and seawards because they are exposed to more food. The polyps on the inner side are deprived of food, causing them to die. The inner significance of oceans, coast, and coastal features. Fishing. Oceans are sources of large quantities of fish, crustaceans, sharks, and whales. These fish are found largely on the continental shelf because there is plenty of fish food planktons. The sheltered water of the fjords offers suitable sites for the breeding of fish. Transport. Water is the cheapest means of transporting bulky goods. Oceans are used as routeways for ships carrying cargo between continents. Small boats can sail up river estuaries from the ocean. Climate. Ocean water plays a fundamental role in the hydrological cycle. The ocean contributes great quantities of moisture to the atmosphere through evapotranspiration. Oceans also modify the climate of adjacent lands. Onshore winds lower temperatures in summer and raise temperatures in winter. Land and sea breezes also lower and raise temperatures in adjacent lands. Minerals. Oil and natural gas are extracted from the rocks beneath the continental shelves, for example, in the Gulf of Mexico off the U.S. coast. The coral limestone rock provides raw material for the cement factory, for instance, Bamburi in Mombasa at the Kenyan coast. Fresh water. Fresh drinking water is obtained for domestic and industrial use by distilling seawater. Power. The tidal rise and fall of the ocean water can be used to generate electricity. This is done in northwest France near Saint-Malo. Tourism. Oceans provide a variety of recreation such as swimming, water skiing, goggling, sport fishing, and sunbathing. Oceans provide a good habitat for marine creatures that are a major attraction to tourists. Urbanization. Coasts form good sites for development of towns, especially where coastal plains are found. An example is Mombasa around Vipingo area. Military strategy. Oceans have been used as bases for military activities. For instance, the Kenyan Navy has its Navy base in the Indian Ocean. International boundaries. Oceans form part of features used to demarcate international boundaries between or among continents. Educational and research. Oceans are important fields where research is conducted on marine life and the shape of the ocean, for instance, careers in ocean. The findings from the research are used to improve fishing and fisheries. Ports and harbors. Some submerged coasts favor the development of deep, well-sheltered harbors. The presence of harbors stimulates the growth of trade and towns. Significance of oceans, coast, and coastal features. Fishing. Oceans are sources of large quantities of fish, crustaceans, sharks, and whales. These fish are found largely on the continental shelf because there is plenty of fish food planktons. The sheltered water of the fjords offers suitable sites for the breeding of fish. Transport. Water is the cheapest means of transporting bulky goods. Oceans are used as routeways for ships carrying cargo between continents. Small boats can sail up river estuaries from the ocean. Climate. Ocean water plays a fundamental role in the hydrological cycle. The ocean contributes great quantities of moisture to the atmosphere through evapotranspiration. Oceans also modify the climate of adjacent lands. Onshore winds lower temperatures in summer and raise temperatures in winter. Land and sea breezes also lower and raise temperatures in adjacent lands. Minerals. Oil and natural gas are extracted from the rocks beneath the continental shelves, for example, in the Gulf of Mexico off the U.S. coast. The coral limestone rock provides raw material for the cement factory, for instance, Bamburi in Mombasa at the Kenyan coast. Fresh water. Fresh drinking water is obtained for domestic and industrial use by distilling seawater. Power. The tidal rise and fall of the ocean water can be used to generate electricity. This is done in northwest France near Saint-Malo. Significance of oceans, coast, and coastal features. Fishing. Oceans are sources of large quantities of fish, crustaceans, sharks, and whales. These fish are found largely on the continental shelf because there is plenty of fish